And we're live. Welcome to the Prayers Radio Show. This is our third show. I am Reverend Rich, and you
And
are.
I am Reverend Paul.
We actually have a good show today. It's always a good show with us. We had actually looked over some of the stuff that we did last time and went, what are we doing? Do we know what we're doing? I think we do. Most of the time we know what we're doing. So I'm adjusting my camera again because
Rich, let's do an invocation first.
Oh, I'm good with that. Remember how to? Okay, let's go ahead and do that.
Yes, okay. That's everybody here, you and I. Closing our eyes, I like to close my eyes just to remind myself that all the power that there is starts from within. And just simply know with me that there is one power, there's one presence, one life, one mind, one heart. That one heart beating through, in, and as all of creation. And knowing that one heart beating in, as, and through all of creation, I know it's who we are right here and right now. For Rich and myself and everybody listening in the sound of our voice is that oneness with that power greater than we are. And knowing that oneness with that power greater than we are, I just simply invoke the consciousness of the one within us right here and right now. Invoking that divine spirit, opening up our consciousness more and more to the acceptance of that within our lives. And knowing that this space right here is taken from the profane into the sacred, that everything right here and right now is sacred space. Knowing that everything that needs to be heard is heard, everything that needs to be said is said. And I simply let it go, let it be, and so it is.
And so it is. That was wonderful. One of the things that we do on this show is that we have conversations you normally would not have. Because a lot of times we go, like I said, show 2, we go to church and then we leave church and that's it. But we never have the conversation. Nobody actually talks to us. Paul and I sit there and go back and forth on things. He's like, well, Troward said this, and Emma
Curtis Hopkins.
Right. The fun of it is, folks, is that we have those conversations that most don't have. And a lot of times that's missing in most philosophies, and ours also, is that we don't sit down and talk about this. We don't hash it through. Now, if you go to class, OCSpiritualCenter.com has a prosperity class coming up this Thursday. Just go there to check it out. Reverend Jim's going to be doing 35-year minister, science of mind. He always changes it up. So I know I'm plugging it, but I thought about it. I said, well, I have to do the video part of it in the background for Zoom. So that's what we do. We're in service, right? That's important. Reverend Paul has his site. What is your site again?
I am spiritalive.com.
And what do you? And I noticed that. Tell everybody what you actually have on there. It's a
focus ministry where I create inspirational videos with the science of mind philosophy for New Thought singers, for Ernest Holmes prayers, and I bring them into a video form, which is then universal. Everybody can view it.
That's cool. And then, of course, we got Prayers Radio, which I actually post. Our talks are on there and a bunch of other reverends, but it's continuous 24/7 so that, you can always have that positive stuff going through your mind. I think that's very important, is to have that conversation and have that conversation with yourself. What do I want to hear? What do I want to know for myself? I mean, we started this off with a prayer, and that prayer is the invocation that says, hey, I'm here, I'm present, I'm one, I am. Mm-hmm. And we talked about I am last time. Oh, by the way, Paul did a new video on I am, which was pretty trippy. I like it. So that was good. I enjoyed it. And then, of course, I've got the other videos on there inside of the YouTube channel that you're watching right now. There was a lot of things going on this weekend that I think are interesting. Our world, if you will, is going through changes, just like we go through changes all the time. We're not exempt for change. That's one thing in this lifetime that you can actually count on, is that things will change every second, every minute of the day. And then you could do a prayer to change it to be a better thing. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, change is inevitable. We're spiritual beings living our spiritual life through our humanity, and spirit's always changing, always creating, which means we as spirit are always changing and creating. That's just part of who we are. Spirit cannot stop changing and creating You see that in health issues. People stop that creative force and health issues pop up. They release that creative force and health issues go away. It's powerful.
It is. It really is. But see, in our philosophy, there's a difference. There's a difference on a lot of the change that you can have. Is that, we talked about last time as God being neutral. That's why people can do their bad things, but in their interpretation, they're doing what they feel is right. But the change that we look at is that you have to control the change again by speaking your word into the law, because change could be like, oh, I'll take the default, it'll be nasty, it won't be something that you want because you took the default. The sky is falling, I didn't move and it hit me, that type of thing. You have the opportunity to change things from either good to great or good to something that you may not want.
And what is
But that
that
is,
that you're changing, Rich?
you're changing the way that you're thinking, you're changing yourself. It comes from inside, and then it scans out to the universal all, which is everything around you. So your mind is the only mind that changes with prayer. Am I right?
Right, the one mind in everything. Correct.
Exactly, because we're not exempt. Everything in this universe is there. But I pose the question to you, Paul, that our mind is the mind. Our mind is an individual expression of God. We know that, but what does that mean? That means that our thoughts are the only thing that really matter in this universe. Because if you close your eyes and then you tell yourself, "I want to see something," and you're going to see something. And you're in your own head. It's in your own head that actually allows you to see things. If you weren't here right now, what did the guy? This is a funny one. I went to Germany and I went to this Roman wall that they had. I was visiting some friends, and I had this thought. This deep thought. I've been science of mind for a number of years, and I didn't really do the practitioner thing until later. But I sat there and I said, I wonder what these soldiers did on the wall. The Roman soldiers, what did they do? And you remember the Roman soldier on the wall, right?
I don't know.
Exactly, because nobody's going to care who you or what you were in 1,000 years from now, because they won't know who you are. Even if you did terrible things, they won't even know who you are. They don't know the exact real story, but because you are an individualized expression of God. You are a spirit. You are energy. What are your thoughts on that?
Well,
I mean, people talk about spirituality. Go ahead.
It brings up a quote from Maya Angelou, and she
Okay.
said, "People aren't going to remember you for what you did or what you said. They're going to remember you for how you made them feel."
Ooh, that's deep.
So, how are we making people feel? How are we making ourselves feel? And that's the power behind the change. For there's that law of mind that only says yes, that's neutral to everything, but yes says yes to what we think and feel into it. So every
Right.
thought, every feeling that we think into it predominantly is going to outpicture as our life. So if you don't like your life, then start changing your thoughts and feelings. And guarantee it's going to change.
Again, that goes back to the previous thing that I just talked about. Are you going to change it to good to great or good to something else that you may not want?
Right, but whatever you change it to, it's going to happen. That's why we call this science. Because you can
Exactly.
scientifically do the steps, know the steps, and have change happen.
And that change, folks, is like that. It's instantaneous when you do the prayer.
Well, it
If
depends
you
on how much thought and feeling we put into the prayer. The more we're
exactly,
connected to that one divine essence we call God, Spirit, whatever we name it, the more we connect and know consciously into that, the faster it happens.
exactly. I couldn't have said it better. I tried, but you both beat me to the punch.
We're here all day.
That's right. That's right. We're here. The other part of that is that how do you do that? And we know that we do it through prayer, and we know we do it through belief. But a lot of people, well, I did the prayer. You said last week with that one gal that you did a prayer for, just didn't, that she negated the prayer and stuff. You don't go back to that prayer that you released to God and say, well, I want it back, God. And I want it back so I can just nurture this pain or whatever it is. You don't go back to it and I think that was what you said about that prayer, that one person that you did prayer for with
Yeah, we
her
just
daughter.
released it. Yeah, we released it and let it go. Each prayer is precisely for that moment. We don't hang on to prayer. We know that there's a greaterness taking care of it for us.
Now look at the wording you used here. Precisely for that moment. That moment. That's the keynote right there, is that at that moment you are thinking, you're feeling, and you're manifesting, and giving it to the law, giving it to God to deal with at that moment. What may come, remember last week we talked about, it may come back something else, but it won't be the exact same as the previous thing. It shouldn't be. And if it is, then, do another prayer. And if it keeps coming back as the same thing and the same thing, I said last week that you have to go and talk to a practitioner or somebody else that can hold it for you. You talked about that already. And that's the keynote right there, because a lot of times, I've had it where I've just done prayer after prayer after, and it'd come back and it'd be just a little bit changed. I'd be like, what the heck? This isn't working right here. I've done 10 prayers. What the heck? And then I'll be like, okay, then I'll call a practitioner. And they say, well, I'm going to, let's
Well,
do a prayer.
think of it as seeding a garden. So each little seed you have, let's say I'm going to plant peas. Each pea that I have, a seed, is a prayer. I'm planting it into the earth. I'm planting it into the law of mind. It's responding perfectly with that. I'm not going to then go on the next day and dig it up to see how much it's gone. I release it. I know that it's taken care of. And yet I have another seed to plant.
Right. And that's, go ahead.
Oh, and the more that we know that, the greater our prayers are, the manifestation of it, the demonstration.
Now, that little symbol that we have over there that I'm pointing out over the left of Paul's head, that's a symbol, a teaching symbol that we have in Science of Mind. And what it is what Paul's talking about is you basically plant the seeds, it goes down, it roots itself, and then it grows up. But if you don't know what you're planting, then if you're not going to get what you want.
Right, and we give the best condition to the seed possible. As in prayer, we give the best possible condition to our prayer, knowing that oneness with everything we work through ourselves to manifest.
Define condition.
Condition. Let's say plants in clay, like clay soil. It's going to root, but it's not going to take. If it's in
Right.
a high sandy soil or a pH neutral or acidic soil, it's a different thing for each of the seeds. So if we come into prayer not connecting to that oneness, it's like planting a seed in clay. We have a good seed, it's in clay, but we're not taking care of it. We're not nurturing it. And we nurture it by our spiritual practices. Can you meditate, which just means closing everything outside of yourself. I like to take 17 minutes and just sit in silence and know that there's oneness within me and oneness within everyone, and that's my meditation. If I do
Well,
that, if I go out in the day and I start my day like that, and I continue starting my day each moment of the day, knowing my oneness, then that's the best soil that one can give for a prayer.
that's wonderful. I actually do what's called a 5-minute meditation before I do something. Sometimes I just, it's the days, you got all these things going on. And even if I'm going to read a book, I'll take something else is going through my mind. I want to clear my head. I would sit in silence and do what's called a mindful meditation for 5 minutes. And here's the key that I found, because all of you out there I know are probably don't have enough time in the day to do much. You've got so many things going on and you're juggling or not. You might be just sitting in a chair and reading. But the point is that you can make it better. So more focused is if you take your timer on your phone or kitchen timer and just put 5 minutes on there and just close your eyes, be silent, and have a note. This is what I do. I have a notepad next to me, because during that 5 minutes, all I have the monkey mind is, the old Buddhist thing, it'll pop, things will pop into my head. I'll write them down and then I'll dismiss them so that I can be in that silence, that meditation, that Zen mode, if you will, so that I can receive message from spirit within myself. I can hear my heartbeat. I can hear my mind. And I think, we talked about last week about, the monk on the mountain and meditation. And there's a video online that we have that talks about that. That's from Holmes. That it gets nothing done if you don't do anything. But the 5 minutes will allow you to center yourself because you're being present with yourself. That sounds good, doesn't
That
it?
sounds good. And bring back that center each and every moment of the day.
Right,
If I'm stuck in traffic, that's a good time for me to bring that moment there. So I'm
right.
not tricked off by the other drivers, that I'm centered and present. And that's what Ernest Holmes says about, he said, the answer to the prayer is in the prayer once it is prayed. And to pray unceasingly, to keep praying every day, it's just knowing that oneness, your uniqueness with the universe. And if you can do that each moment, when you do that each moment of every day, you'll notice your life is just changing. Things around you are easier. We get parking spaces. People are more joyous around you. And that starts within ourselves.
Yeah.
And nobody can make you do it. You need to do it. You meaning each person.
Well, it's the choice that you're making within yourself. Again, that goes back to that: whose mind am I speaking with? My
Mm,
mind is my mind. My world is my world. It's how I interpret it. That goes back to the discussion we had about God being neutral. Is that somebody else's mind might be something different. You may like hamburgers. You might like salad. Well, that's good. I mean, if everybody likes salad, we'd have no salad. I'm just saying, it's good that things are different. That we had some challenging turmoil. Well, not turmoil. We had some people expressing themselves. Let's see. I'm changing framing it differently. We had people expressing themselves in different types of venues this weekend in the United States and all over the world, where they just decided they're going to do a protest against things, and that's people speaking themselves. Um, but then again, you have to look at that. Is that ask yourself, what do I want? What do I feel? What works for me? Not the rest of the world out there. Because with prayer, we can change the whole world that goes out to us and for us. So we don't have to go and protest. But then it goes back to that monk on the mountain thing. If you don't do anything, you don't get anything. If you don't ask, you don't receive in the physical world. You got to go downstairs and have the sandwich or something like that if you're gonna not starve in this physical form. Um, not to just breatharians look that up. That's really different, where they live off the auras of the universal all. So we're getting into Tesla stuff now, where they oh. But the point is there are other schools of thought which we respect in our philosophy. Am I right?
correct.
And so I'm bringing them up because I've read about these folks, breatharians. If you want to look them up, I don't necessarily ever want to eat, but that would be a good dieting technique. But do not do that. Please consult your doctor or your spiritual guide or your nutritionist. Do not trust. Do not. And again, this is your world. This is my world. That's Paul's world over there. Okay.
Yeah, and this weekend, a friend said, "Are you going to go to the protest?" And I said, "No, I never go to something that I'm against. I'm only doing something that I'm for." And Ernest Holmes brings that up. He said, "Never be against something, always be for something." Because the universal mind is going to say yes to everything we put into it. So if I'm against something, that law is saying, here's more to be against. If I'm for something, the universal mind is saying, yes, here's more to be for. It's my choice.
What's cool about that is that God only hears yes.
Well, the law only hears yes.
Well, then you're speaking your word into the law, which goes to God. So I'm doing the shortcut. But we are Prayers Radio, so we need to make sure that we're proper on it. That's why we're having this discussion, because the way you present things to your mind and to the outer world matters. In the way that you present your prayers in, that matters also. We talked about that last time too, about the putting a prayer out. Oh, I want that, and I want that. I don't want anything else. No, you mental equivalent. You need to make a mental equivalent of what you want to feel at the end of the day after having something. And you're absolutely right about that. You have to go and If you want something positive. You bring the positive part in.
And even splitting hairs in our philosophy, we don't want, we know. We have that feeling of having it already, the mind saying, yes, here it is. If I'm wanting something, the mind is giving me more to want. So, what is it that I want? And then bring it into law as if it's already here. And the
And
law responds perfectly.
that's where you say that I know that this is here, right now. I see it, I feel it, I touch it. I have that mental equivalent in my mind of it being there. That could be anything. It's funny. I have, there's the friends. I want a job. I want a job. I want a job. I'm like, well, that's
Want,
fine.
want,
Let's
want.
go. Yeah, want. But it's not really want. It's you have to know what you want to receive also. Because I had a friend say, oh, I want a job, and I said, well, there's, go down to the, stables down there and start scooping crap. They'll hire you for $1 an hour. So I don't want to do that. I said, well, you said you wanted a job, right? You got to be careful what you say. It's not I want a job. I want this job that will give me this feeling and this
Right.
manifestation in my life and this joy. It isn't I want this. Or one of the talks I did in Whittier. I'll take any man. Is that what I was saying about relationships? Or I'll take any woman. You really want that? Yeah, yeah, okay. You're going to get some really defaulting garbage that you're going to like, what? Now, you might get something good, but why leave it to chance? The law, if you speak it into the law, you got God on your side going, bam, this is it. This is yours. And by the way, it's when you get it, it's not always, you might have got asked for the pink Ferrari, but you got the red one, right? It'll be different a little bit, most likely, but it'll be something that God knows is fine tuned for you, not you fine tuned for God,
Well, you're
because you
fine
believe
tuning it for yourself as God.
exactly. See, that's why we have this, because the conversation we're actually tuning ourselves into better ways of doing this.
Yeah, you
What
ask
do you
for
think?
A Ferrari, and you get a little Matchbox car. Perfect.
Exactly. Remember the Bentley last week?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
exactly. That's it right there.
So it's all
It,
about thinking and feeling into it.
and
Like, what's that
accepting.
feeling when you want something and you get that thing that you want? What's that feeling feel like for you inside? And that's the beginning of prayer. You're connected to the one, that one's connected through you, your individualized energy of the universe, right here and right now, speaking my word. What's that feel like to be driving that car? What's that feeling of, elation that you have? And bring that into prayer.
That sounds good.
That's how it works for me. So I assume it might work that way for everyone.
Yeah. Well, play with it too, but be careful on straying too far away, because releasing it into law, those type of things. These are the things that Holmes found that worked. And at least in my life, when I apply it, see, there's that wording again. You know, a lot of times you look at the wording and stuff, but when it's applied, not but when it is applied, it manifests in ways that I can't even imagine. Problems, thoughts, take that. Remember we talked about stepping back away from the problem, being away from it, and just say, no, you don't have to be in there, but you can change the way you're looking at it.
Mm.
Relationships, jobs, current circumstances, all of it's changeable. I mean, we could show a video on it. Why am I poor? That's, I don't know if we want to see that now. It's 3 minutes, but it's interesting. Do we want to try that?
Well, even Ernest Holmes in the Science of Mind magazine, I believe it was last month,
Right.
he said that if you're poor, then stop thinking you're poor. Think not with a poor mentality, but think of an abundant mentality, and that changes everything.
Yeah. Well, don't. It's think what you want, not what you don't want.
Well, you're going to get whatever you're thinking into the law all the time if that's your predominant thought.
Exactly. Exactly. And the law will provide it for you. It will provide it in spades. You'll be like, oh my God, really? I'm getting more of this? Well, what are you focusing on? You're focusing on what you're getting more of.
Yeah, what you focus on multiplies, and that's your life.
And it continues continuously. The what was that we talked about earlier? Good, the good part.
Oh, when the quote Ernest Holmes, there's the power for good in the universe greater than I am.
Right, right. And we talked about it last time about the good being
There's no
uh,
opposite of good. And if you quote Emma Curtis Hopkins was the teacher of all teachers. She was the teacher for Ernest. The last student of hers was Ernest Holmes, and that's how we became the science of mind, was through his spiritual awakening through Emma Curtis Hopkins.
now. It isn't just him. You know, we don't worship Ernest Holmes in this philosophy. Just to be clear, what we do is we apply what he has shown us, what he has shown. Oh, no, it's not like that. We apply what is written there. We apply principles and the law to make things happen through prayer.
It's scientific, yeah. We do the formula.
Yeah, and it's a formula. That's why, if you're a computer scientist, you're like, ooh, A to B to C equals. Yeah. Anyway, uh, well, we're out. We're almost out of time here. Is there anything else that you want to put out, Paul?
Well, Emma Curtis Hopkins again, when she said, I'm seeking my good. And what is that good? I'm seeking my good. My good is my God. Whatever I label as good becomes my God. So if I go around all day thinking I'm seeking my good is strength, I know strength is my God. The power of that is with you all day.
And then you also look at the definitions on what you believe that to be. Look up the dictionary definition and see if you can feel it. See if you can know it.
Yeah, and real
Because
quick, and I'm going to put a little link in the chat box there. There we
before
go.
it,
It's a PDF for Emma Curtis Hopkins. It's a free PDF from Unity Church. And in the reading, it says, we call metaphysics a science of life, because to know pure metaphysics is to renew life and make death and accident impossible. We call metaphysicals a science of health because to know metaphysics is to be perfectly well and free from liability of sickness and disease of any kind. We call metaphysics a science of strength because to know metaphysics is to know the strength beyond any strength you have ever dreamed of. And she goes on and on with this, and it's beautiful. And if we can encompass that, that's where Ernest Holmes got the spiritual mind treatment from. You can see
wow.
the bits and pieces that are in Emma that he's now individualized through himself.
And then applies it directly to it. That's the important part, is the application of the prayer. If I'm going to put inside of the we just affiliated ourselves. Well, Prayers Radio is taken and joined radio.net, and it says on there, if you don't say a prayer, you haven't got a prayer. So I'm putting that inside the links.
Yeah, and to use your prayers, don't. There was a reverend that said he had spiritual mind treatment in his back pocket when he needed it, and it went on and on and on, and then finally when he needed it, it was all rusty. He's like, how do I do this? So to use it is to grow it, to plant that seed and to water it, to take care of it, to weed out all the things around it, is to have it grow and blossom into something even greater.
And the
And that's what
weeds
our prayers
themselves,
are.
yeah,
Sorry?
the weeds themselves are those things that, remember I said I did a prayer and then other stuff would come back in. Those are the weeds that come around that he's
Yeah,
talking
the
about.
negative thoughts. What are we thinking?
Yeah, yeah, that's important. Well, we are Prayers Radio, and we do this every week on Tuesday, and you're more than welcome to look inside of the chat, because we will chat with the audience. If you have a question, we'll actually go through it. Now, we are just, like I said, this is our third show, and we're just still putting it together. I just noticed that I didn't capitalize a few letters in there, but that's okay. The point is that we're having the conversation. We're having the conversation. So let's go ahead and do a prayer and close us out. Would you like to do it, or should I? Because I
Oh,
always
go
do the
ahead.
five.
Yeah.
I don't do. There's things when I do a prayer, I don't do flowery. I do the 5 steps. I recognize, unify, declare, thanksgiving, and then release. So let's recognize now that the universe is full of opportunity, and we are part of that universe. I'm unifying with that part right now. And I'm declaring for each and every person in the sound of my voice that the perfection of them is manifesting, that they're whole, perfect, and complete in everything that they do and say and know. And I'm knowing right now that that perfection is manifested for you through the universal all, through God in all its greatest manifestations. Now, I'm also denying power to anything that does not serve our highest good, and know right here, right now, that we're accepting that something better from God in its place. I give thanks and I release this into the law of action, knowing it's done, and so it is.
So it is.
Short, sweet, and to the point. Now, you notice Paul and I had this discussion one time, just a closing thing, is that when you say you, you're actually pointing to somebody else. But when you're speaking your word of truth for somebody else as you're speaking it to yourself because you're the only one that's, your mind is the only mind that's changing in prayer. So I want to make that clear when I said that. So we are Prayers Radio. We will have this conversation next week. And Paul and I wish you well.
And check out the link for Emma